Hello and welcome to today's 411 as we continue our conversation regarding diabetes awareness. Today we have with us Miss Antonia Mathew, and she is our community dietitian. Welcome to the program, Ms. Mathew.
Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is mine. Now we're here talking about diabetes awareness, and one very vital part regarding the management of diabetes is nutrition. So talk a little bit about how important nutrition is to the management of diabetes.
The short answer is it's extremely important. So I might be biased in saying this, but me being a dietitian, nourishing your body well can be the difference between you living a long, happy, healthy life and you having a life filled with comorbidities, especially because of the way the disease process works and the way it directly interacts with the carbohydrates and the foods that you put into your body. So I would say absolutely nutrition is extremely important when it comes to managing diabetes.
Now talk a bit about the impact, food, nutrition, and diabetes. How does it impact?
So let me put it this way. Say that you wake up in the morning and just for reference, you have 2 slices of white bread. I'm not demonizing white bread, but that's what you had, all right? So when that gets into your body, you chew it up, it starts to digest. When that gets to the end of its digestion process, it becomes sugar, all right? So in order for the body to use this sugar, it has to be absorbed from the blood and go into your cells, so in your organs, in your tissues, things like that. In order to do that, we need this hormone called insulin. Now think about insulin as a key, all right? And so what that key will do is open the door of the cell so that sugar can go inside. However, sometimes for people that have diabetes, that insulin isn't produced enough, or the insulin doesn't work at the cell. The key doesn't work, all right? So instead of the blood sugar going into the cell so you can use it, so it can become energy, it kind of builds up in the blood. So imagine you had that white bread at breakfast, it breaks down into sugar, it stays in the blood. Then at lunch, you have some rice, you have some pasta. That also becomes sugar. The body can't use it, it ends up in the blood. And at dinner time, the same thing. So over time, you have this build up of sugar in the blood. And that's what we refer to as hyperglycemia, or high blood sugar. So the food that you eat, specifically the food group carbohydrate, definitely would impact diabetes, that affect the way that you manage your blood sugar levels.
Now, how do we manage diabetes with food? Okay, you talk about the white bread and the carbohydrates turning into sugar and what's not, but how do we look at food as a management tool for diabetes?
So one of the greatest things you can do is learn the amount of carbohydrates you should have at a time and the types of carbohydrates to choose. Now, when it comes to the amounts, we teach something called consistent carbohydrate intake or carbohydrate counting. Now, that's a skill that your dietitian can help you to figure out how to do it well. But we want to control essentially the amount of carbohydrates we're having at one time in the body. All right, because remember, we don't want it to build up and build up and build up. We want the body to use what it can and then come back for more later. All right, so we want to control the amount of carbohydrates we're having at one time. Then the other thing is we want to choose carbohydrates that have a little bit more substance to them. So you don't want to choose the refined carbohydrates, the white ones as we know them as, the white sugar, the white bread, the white rice. We want to choose carbohydrates that have just a little bit more substance to them. So your whole grains and your beans, your legumes, things like that, your fruits that have the skins on them so you can get that fiber. So you want to, 1, control the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating, and 2, be careful with the type of carbohydrates that you're having as well.
Now, let's put this into perspective. You're giving us a wealth of information, a lot of great content, but give us a meal plan. Take us through a day of what diabetics should eat for one day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The first thing is we want to make sure that the meal is balanced. So for breakfast, for somebody who is diabetic, we want to maybe go for something that's very hearty, very substantial. I like to recommend oats. Oats have a lot of fiber in them, as well as, you know, the other carbohydrates as well. So oats, if you want to, and you have to be careful with this, you add a little bit of fruit, just a little bit of fruit. We don't want to sweeten it with anything. So just a very simple oats with either plant-based milk or just water. So we have that oats, some eggs maybe. And of course, don't be afraid in the morning times to add some vegetables to your breakfast. All right. So you can go for spinach, you can go for kale, you can go for callaloo, whatever makes you comfortable. You can definitely have some vegetables at breakfast time. Maybe have that with a little unsweetened tea, and that's your breakfast. Simple, nice, good to go. You come down to lunch now. What I usually tell people is you want to make half of your meal fruit and vegetable. And for a diabetic, you can go crazy on the vegetables, all right? Your non-starchy vegetables. So again, your spinach, your cabbage, your callaloo, all of those things, you can go crazy on them. Then you want to take 25% of your plate. So you have 50% that's vegetables. Take 25%, maybe do a little bit of brown rice, all right? Maybe a little bit of whole grain pasta, whatever it is that you're having. And then the other 25%, you go for protein. So whether it be the meat, the chicken, the fish, anything like that. And also don't be afraid to do plant-based sources of protein. So you can stew down some beans, right? Red beans, lentils, chickpeas, anything like that. So that's what the meal setup will look like. That's lunch. Dinner, you could go for something light, maybe a slice of bread with some avocado on it. You know, just something really simple.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Now I hear you mentioning a lot about fiber intake.
Yes.
You speak a lot about fiber. Why is fiber or the intake of fiber for diabetics so important?
So fiber is one of those components that help to control your blood sugar. All right. So what fiber does, one, is to help keep you fuller a little bit longer. So you're not grabbing at things, you know, throughout the day that you really shouldn't be eating. And it also helps it digest a little bit slower than your refined carbohydrates. So your white carbohydrates, like I talked about before. So it digests just a little bit slower. So instead of your blood sugar doing this when you eat, it gets a nice little rise and fall, and then it levels out. So fiber helps with that.
I was happy to hear you note about the fruit, because normally when you listen to a diabetic person, they would tell you they can't eat mango, they can't eat sugar cane, sugar apple, guava. You know, our local food. So is that true, or is it in moderation? Tell me, what rules should a diabetic follow when eating, you know, some of our natural foods?
So I want to say absolutely a diabetic can have their fruit. All right, fruit give us vitamins and minerals that we need in our body. So the guinea, the sugar apple, the soursop, the mangoes that we love to eat in the summertime, of course you can have them, but, and this is a very strong but, we want to make sure that we're having them in the correct portions, all right? So of course, you don't want to sit down and eat a bucket of mangoes, right? And I know people that do that, eat a whole bucket of mangoes. For a diabetic, that's not feasible, all right? So maybe one mango, again, maybe do half.
A day?
So it would depend on what you're eating throughout the day, but maybe that's a snack for you instead of, you know, grabbing at several mangoes, right? Because mangoes are really sweet, and a lot of our local fruits are very, very sweet. So it is not so much we want to avoid the fruit altogether, but we want to have them in the right portions, right? And then adding them again to something like oats will make it a little bit more substantial.
And you spoke a lot too about portion control. Why is that so important?
So portion control matters because, for example, let's go back to that breakfast that you had with the white bread. Let's say instead of having those 2 slices of bread, you had 4 slices of bread instead. Now that doubles the amount of sugar that you have put into your body at one time. So you definitely don't want to overload your body with sugar all at once. So your portion sizes become very important in order to manage those blood sugar levels.
And what's the difference between the sugar that comes as a result of the carbohydrates and the sugar that comes from fruit?
Sorry, repeat that.
What is the difference between the sugar that comes as a result of the carbohydrate intake and fruit, that type of, from guineps and mangoes? And stuff?
There's no difference.
There's no difference.
The sugar is sugar. It breaks down. The carbohydrate foods, break down into sugar. No matter what carbohydrate food it is, it breaks down into the same sugar. So one serving of bread, the way that it breaks down is the same way to one serving of mangoes. It's the same way that ice cream breaks down. Any carbohydrate food breaks down into that same sugar.
Okay.
But there are ones that have a little bit more substance to them, and so we want to choose those over the ones that are simple.
Okay. What are some of the issues you have with some of your diabetic patients when it comes to their diets?
So the biggest thing I see diabetics doing, or people who have diabetes doing, is trying to cut out all carbohydrates. That includes the fruit, the vegetables, all of it. Now, we need carbohydrates because they give us energy, right? So for them, it's a matter of controlling how much, again, and what times throughout the day that they have them. So that's one of the biggest things. We don't want to cut out all carbohydrates. The second thing is neglecting to include other things into the diet, like the protein, the healthy fats, not drinking enough water, not getting enough exercise. Those are some of the things that predominantly I see in people who have diabetes and not managing it well.
Now tell me about how persons can access your service.
All right. I am currently stationed in Virgin Gorda. I do nutrition education, counseling, and a bit of weight management as well. So you can find me in Virgin Gorda. I also service the Sister Islands, Anegada, and Just Van Dyke. That doesn't mean if you live on Tatola that you can't reach out to me. You can definitely reach out to me. But that's where you can find me. You can call me at Nurse Iris O'Neill Clinic. You can also follow me on Instagram at tony.rdn. And yeah, those are the places you can find me.
Wonderful. I would like to thank you, Ms. Mathew, for coming on the program today, sharing with us your wealth of information regarding nutrition and the management of diabetes. I give you this opportunity to make any final thoughts.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. Just my final thought is for persons that have diabetes, just make sure that you treat your body well. Take care of your whole self, not just in terms of nutrition, but physically. Make sure you get in the exercise. Make sure that you're not stressing yourself too much. I know it's COVID season and, it's easy to get stressed out, but that can also elevate your blood sugar levels as well. So just try to take it easy and remember that just because you have diabetes doesn't mean that you have to have this sad, empty life. You can live a long, happy, fruitful life and still have diabetes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank our viewing audience for logging on today. We encourage you to share this video with someone you know that is affected by diabetes. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Reporting for the BVI Health Services Authority, I am Marketing and Communications Manager, Natasha Letso.